What's up? What's up? What is up? It's another Friday, another opportunity for the Ball Hog Sports Talk to come into your living room, into your podcast device, and to wherever you are consuming us. Thank you again for another opportunity. I paused this morning right before the holiday break. I know everyone's getting ready for their big weekend to celebrate, hopefully with family and friends, whether it be barbecues or fireworks or however you plan to celebrate with your family. I pause because today's show is a big one. It's a big show for me for several reasons. The episode entitled Teachable Moments, because last week I had a teachable moment. And it's a big show for me because I know that as a former professional athlete who got the opportunity to play major Division I football, what we're going to discuss today is a touchy subject in a lot of ways, especially in locker rooms across the world. Last week's episode, you guys know I've been doing this for over 2.5 years, and I take a lot of pride in it. I put a lot of work into it. I pull people into it to help me out. But last week's episode, for the first time in 2.5 years, an episode is nowhere to be found. And I know some people might have asked, well, did we pull it because we thought the content was low quality? And the answer to that is absolutely, positively no. Absolutely not. Last week's show, which was entitled The Cat's Out the Bag, I'll give you a quick overview, right? We talked about the cat being out of the bag as it relates to former athletes and their mental health issues. I shared that one of my former teammates is dealing with some major mental health issues that has now progressed into drug addiction, a drug abuse that is being captured on live videos. I also shared that several former athletes have teammates dealing with similar situations. So the cat's out of the bag on it, and I charged us with the responsibility of trying to help our teammates. I'm happy to report that some of my other teammates and myself have rallied around this particular player, and we've sent help, and we've got him in a temporary facility. And now he is I hopefully on the road to recovery. It'll be a long road. We're getting his house cleaned, and so I'm happy to report that. But that was the first part of the cat's out of the bag. We also talked about the cat being out of the bag about the NBA and certain players and coaches showing through what we saw, their limitations and challenges, i.e. Ben Simmons and Steve Nash. And other players showing that they have unlimited potential, i.e. Devin Booker, and some coaches, i.e. Monty Williams. So that was a great segment. And this week's NBA playoffs has sort of confirmed what we talked about in last week's episode. We also talked about in last week's episode the cat being out of the bag as it pertains to the NCAA's ongoing facade, this false promotion of amateurism in response to the Supreme Court ruling on benefit limitations for athletes. We talked about creative ways on how players can get paid. And this week's name, image, and likeness ruling or decision was sort of the next step in that conversation. But then last week's episode ended with a short segment on Carl Nassib. And Carl Nassib is the NFL player who made headlines for coming out as being gay and becoming the first openly gay active NFL player. In that segment, at the end of the show, in that 5 minutes, I made provocative statements like we always do on the Ball Hog Sports Talk. We make provocative statements. But when I did so, I was absolutely careless with my word choice. And by being careless, I hurt family, friends, and people that I truly care about in the process. It's for that reason and that reason alone we pulled the show I've used it as a teachable moment because people who actually care about me spent the time to help me learn. Because I care about you as a listener, as a supporter, as an audience member. I want this to be a teachable moment for all of us. I'm happy that we pulled the show, despite all the work, despite all of the consecutive weeks of putting out a show. I'm thrilled, elated that we pulled the show, and we're going to talk about why. It's the Ball Hog Sports Talk. It's your boy B Brown, ESQ, aka the Ball Hog, aka the Mouth of the South. Another Friday morning. You don't want to miss this one. Tag a friend, tag a foe, tag anybody that you know. We're going to have a very, very open, candid conversation. Let's go. Wake up, wake up, wake up, and stay woke. Because this is the Ball Hog Sports Talk with your boy, B Brown, ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South. This is the place where sports, business, and entertainment collide. And we're going to give it to you rough, rugged, and raw. So come get you a spoonful, like some grits with butter and salt. You know how we do it in the South, y'all. Make sure you do not get caught in your feelings. Strap on your seatbelt and enjoy the ride. Come on, let's go, 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 go. What's up? What's up? What is up? You know what it is. It's the Ball Hog Sports Talk with your boy, B Brown, ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, a.k.a. Mr. Excessive Celebration, a.k.a. I am also here with one of my fellow trustees from the South Orange Board of Trustees. So I am now a.k.a. Bob's sidekick on today's show. Mr. Bob Zuckerman is here in the building. Welcome him to the Ball Hog Sports Talk. What's going on, Bob? How you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine, Bobby. How are you?
I'm fabulous.
Can I call you Bobby?
Yes.
Or I have to call you B Brown?
Yeah, well, you can call me Bobby. For you, you can call me Bobby. Okay. I just make, when Big Flo comes on, he got to call me Big B Brown, but you can call me Bobby.
You're not only the voice of the Mouth of the South, you're the Mouth of the South Orange, too.
There you go. That's why I just put it South. You know what I mean? It's, okay. Whether it's South Florida, South Orange, Mouth of the South, we got it. We got it. I wanted to make sure I brought you on this morning. In the opening monologue, I talked about what was very careless and potentially harmful language that I used last week, and I did so in a provocative way, and we'll dive into that. But I brought you on the show because you were the first openly gay trustee to be elected in South Orange, and you were one of the first people that I called after last week's show, and I realized that the word choice was at a minimum careless, potentially dangerous to others. You were one of the first people I called, and you answered, and you gave me a very thoughtful segment of your time. You didn't have to do that, but you did. The reason I brought you on to this show, Teachable Moments, is I really want to almost redo our conversation, if you don't mind, and we literally went through, okay, what did I say that offended you? And I want to do so for, again, my own teachable moment, but also for the audience. And I ask, not ask, this is the one time I will ever use this verb. I demand our audience to please be respectful of what we're doing here. Because I don't want any distractions from comments that might be somewhat of a sidetrack. We are two friends, colleagues, and most importantly, human beings that respect each other, have love for one another. So please allow us to have this space, to have this exchange. So I'll start with just open it up. Like when you initially heard this segment on Carl Nassib, what were your initial feelings, emotions, if you will?
Well, let's step back just a bit, Bobby. The first thing I saw was on because we're not just friends, we're Facebook friends, and I saw your subject line for your show last week, and that was after I read it, it said, that Carl was the first homosexual to participate, actively play in the NFL.
Right.
And that kind of struck me, not because homosexual is an incorrect word, but it's not the word that the LGBT community uses.
Got it.
It's a clinical term, right?
Okay.
Um,
And
that
what do you mean by clinical term? I'll hop in every once in a while just to get, because this is teachable. I want to make sure we all understand. What do you mean by clinical term?
Well, it's clinical in the way that if you look at the Kinsey scale, right? Homosexual, heterosexual, bisexual, and then everything in the middle. So
Right.
when it's a word that harkens back to the 50s and the 60s, when gay men and trans folks and lesbians, for that matter, when their bars were raided by the police, you'd see in the New York Times, it would say, homosexual bar.
Right.
It's a clinical term in the sense that it's not of the essence of what we say now. We use the terms LGBT or LGBTQ. Q stands
Got it.
for queer or questioning. We actually took back the word queer, which was a derogatory term, right?
Right.
So the community has kind of taken it back for our own.
Got it. Got
And,
it. Okay.
and it also stands for questioning. People who don't know, they don't know what their sexual orientation is yet. That's especially true for our youth, right? So it's LGBTQ, it's gay, it's lesbian, it's bisexual, it's transgender, and that's typically how we refer to
Got it.
ourselves.
Got it.
So if I had written that, I would have said Carl Nassim is the first openly LGBTQ active NFL player.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
Or gay, but I wouldn't have said homosexual.
Got it.
Now a lot
And
of people don't know that. A lot of people, in the mainstream, a lot of people who are not LGBT don't know that.
got it.
So
And now they do. And that
now they do.
again, like this is as a public official, and so I'll get to that because I come here and I say provocative things, and I would love for them to remain in the provocative space in which I uttered them. But as an elected official, what we say holds power, and I had to come to terms with that last week. And so what I do from this point forward, there was an option to just and I wrote a statement. And I wanted to read the statement. I just felt as though if I did that, it'd be political, and I'm just trying to get it behind me. I'm looking forward to having this in front of me, meaning learning not only in this show, learning not only based on what we talked about throughout the week, but learning going forward. And I think that hearing that just the term homosexual itself is a clinical and outdated, I'm assuming offensive way to describe the LGBTQ community. I think that this teachable moment, my audience, if you will, let's make sure we take note of that, because obviously I didn't know I was saying something that was offensive because I wrote it in the description.
Right. And so
Right.
what I was going to do, Bobby, was I was going to call you and say, hey, Bobby, let me teach you about the terminology. Right.
Right.
But then I didn't listen to the show at that point. Then an hour or two later, I get a text from another colleague who did listen to the show and said, your colleague, Bobby, said some really offensive stuff.
Right.
And this person considered it homophobic. Right. Now, I know you. I know you not to be homophobic.
Right.
So that shocked me. So they told me where on the podcast you could hear, go to 53 minutes. I played it with my husband. We were sitting outside.
Yep.
And
who your husband, Grant. Amazing.
Yep.
Amazing guy who I also consider a friend. So give a shout out to Grant. So you hear it with Grant, and then how does it make you feel?
I was shocked. I was shocked because when I saw you post that about Carl Nassim, I assumed, Bobby, knowing you, that what you were going to say was good for him. I support him 100%. More people need to come out of the closet. More sports players need to come out of the closet. you know, and show, and we support them, and that's not what I heard. Right? That is not what I heard. I heard almost the opposite.
Almost opposite. Let me stop here because we're gonna go by section by section, because I believe all those things. Happy for him. More professional athletes should feel comfortable, indeed, if they are part of the LGBTQ community, to come out. I did not say those things, and this is not. I'm going to say the next thing, which will sound like an excuse. Please don't let it come off as an excuse. I wish we would have started the show versus ending the show, because in the private chat, we've got this whole, hey, we got to get out of here. We're already up on an hour and we were rushing, and I was not very artful with all the things I did not say. I am very happy for Carl Nassib, and seems like he's got a good relationship, in a long-term relationship. And I am happy that he came out. I didn't say those things because we were rushing, and I dealt with just what we called the pressure that the media is putting on other players, because the article that we were analyzing, and I'm giving this backdrop just because it gives it a little more context. You're a friend, and I want people to have the context. The article that we were analyzing is why didn't other NFL players come out in support of Carl Nassib, like J.J. Watt and Saquon Barkley? And so without that backdrop, I hopped in and was rushing and did a terrible job covering it. But again, I'm giving that backdrop just to say, as a friend,
sure,
that will help you give it a little more context. But
okay.
Having said that, I use the term homosexual, which that hopefully is officially the last time I will use it. But I use that term in order to describe it in the write-up, and then I use it again, I think, in the presentation. I started off with who cares, and you and I have talked, so I'm gonna do it this way because I know what issues we've discussed about what I said. Well, basically, who cares? And I said the pendulum has swung too far the other way. When you heard that, how did it make you feel? And let's talk about it.
So when I heard that, I heard you said the pendulum swung too far the other way. I heard that as the pendulum needs to swing back. We're already there. We're at the post LGBTQ, who cares whether someone's straight, gay, whatever. We're already there. We're already at the point. The analogy, I thought about it a little bit, Bobby, this week too, knowing that I'm going to come on the show. And remember how you heard lots of people, I know it's not a political show, but you and I are kind of a little political, right?
Yep.
That you heard from a lot of, especially the far right conservatives, right wing.
Yep.
Who said, after Barack Obama was elected and reelected, so he was elected twice, racism is over.
Right.
No more racism, because we've elected a black president twice. You know that's BS.
Or they use the proof of not being racist. Hey, I voted for Barack Obama. So yes, that's laughable. That's absolutely laughable.
That's right. Yes. Laughable. Right.
And so you were hearing that same sort of.
I was hearing that same thing, only dealing with LGBTQ. I was hearing we're there. We're past the point where anyone should give a shit. Can I say that?
You can say that on this show.
Okay. Where anyone can.
The Big Flo show says it all the time. You'll hear him say it worse.
All right, Big Flo. Where anyone would give a shit about who's gay, who's not gay, who's straight. But we're not there yet. And the reason we're not there yet is that there are still teenagers, and not just teenagers, but mostly young people and teenagers, who are killing themselves because they can't deal with the fact that they might be gay.
Right.
There are still homeless kids, thousands of them. 40% of homeless youth are LGBTQ. 40%. Now, you know that we don't comprise 40% of the population, right?
Right.
So that is an incredible statistic, and very sobering, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so when kids hear messages like you don't need to necessarily, his teammates don't need to support him, or it's we shouldn't make a big deal out of this, or or talking just about that was another point, was just at one point you were just talking about, like, I don't care who you sleep with.
Yep. I'm going to get to that part. I'm going to get to that
All right.
part. Yep.
So
Yep.
all that kind of stuff, that can be that's harmful.
Yep.
That's harmful.
Agreed.
And where I want you to get, and I know you will, because knowing you, I know you will, is to be not just not homophobic, but being a real ally.
Right.
And being a real ally, and especially as a former NFL player, and so you have an understanding of the whole sort of homophobia that goes around in sports still to this
Absolutely.
day, right?
Absolutely.
You have to know that.
And some of that is why I think I came in with my own sense of entitlement, meaning when I compare myself, relatively speaking, to some of the conversations about the LGBTQ community in a locker room, like, oh, I'm head and shoulders above guys who use, slurs or whatever the case might be and have true homophobia. And I came in with my own sense of entitlement. I talked about my relationship with you and Grant, and whether it be family members who identify with the LGBTQ community. I came in my own sense of entitlement because I know I don't have an issue with the community. I do have real relationships, but at the same time, your words and how they would impact young people, and especially if someone who listens, who goes and repeats echoes those same sentiments. Yes, I did not appreciate just how harmful the words could be. And so that's why I wanted to bring you on. The promiscuity thing, the analogy, and I told you this when we spoke. So I'm repeating a lot of things we said. The promiscuity thing, I made it for those of you who did not see it. Hopefully a lot of you didn't see it. We pulled it down again on purpose, and I'm glad we did, because my friendship with Bob and others means way more than being consistent having the show. And it was wrong. But the analogy was, I was using a hypothetical teammate to say if one of them was promiscuous and came in and talked about all his sexual exploits, the only thing that binds us is a game plan. His teammates would be like, who cares? We don't talk about that. I regret it. I initially was going to compare and do a hypothetical to someone who was a polygamist. And I thought to myself, well, I don't want to compare it to polygamy because it's illegal. And I'll get in trouble for comparing to something illegal because same-sex marriage is not. The truth of the matter is I was trying to dance around it. It wasn't a good analogy. Relationships are real relationships, whether they're within the LGBTQ community or not. I should have been talking about who you love is your choice, and I didn't. So let me say that on record, and I apologize for that. I love seeing you and your husband together. You guys are amazing together, watching you and having moments. We talked about, the March on Washington and, the history of your relationship as it pertains to U.S. history in the LGBTQ community. So I apologize for that. I will give you sort of like the last word because I should have given it more time. We should have discussed it in a way because Carl Nassib's statement was a huge statement. So I take the blame for that, trying to take a huge moment and shove it into 5 minutes. But I want you to, and it is a validation in Pride Month, a sense of pride that he got to come out as, a gay man, active player. For our audience members, because we're always fighting against time on the show, but for our audience members, this teachable moment, talk to both me and them about sort of where we go from here. Because again, as a political figure, I could have just written a statement and let's get this behind me. I don't want it behind me. I want it in front of me. But that's going to require taking guidance, taking instruction, having these conversations. So what would you leave the audience with from that standpoint? What can be teachable from not only my mistake, and I apologize genuinely and sincerely for it today on the phone. I was wrong. But then for the common mistakes that, whether it be the use of the word homosexual, the attitude that, we do need to swing back further the other way. And I'll explain what I meant by that. But what would you leave our audience with in terms of a teachable moment?
Sure, Bob. So I don't know if you are aware of this former player, Wade Davis. Wade Davis played for the Titans. He played for the Redskins when they were called the Redskins about 10 years ago. And he came out after he retired. So again, one of several actually who did that.
Yep.
And he just wrote a great piece in Vox magazine, Vox.com. I would urge you to read it. And he talks about the support that is needed and the work that is really needed, not so much from LGBTQ folks when it comes to homophobia in sports, but from you guys, from the straight community, that is really needed in terms of being there to support a teammate who makes this move.
Got it.
This was courageous. This was super courageous of him. I know he's got a guaranteed contract. He's got 2 more years, right? Several $1 million. Great, good for him. But, you know, after Michael Sam came out right before the draft, he got cut. And then and we don't know why, right? Maybe it's because he didn't have what it takes, or maybe there were other reasons.
Right.
So the last thing I want to leave you with, Bobby, is that as a teammate, first of all, it's always great to support your teammates when they're going through stuff, right? No matter what, you're a teammate.
Absolutely.
You know? So you know all about that. And I think what I want to leave you with is that for every Carl Nassib that comes out, it gives the next guy or the next baseball player or the next male tennis player or whomever who might be LGBTQ to come out. And the more people that come out, the more acceptance there is in the world for LGBTQ people, the less violence there is, the less hate, and the more people just realize that we're people just like everyone else.
On that note, because we are people just like everyone else on both sides of the LGBTQ ledger, I guess, those who identify and those who do not, is why we had you here, because of the personal relationship. Again, I say I'm sorry to you, to Grant, to the entire community for rushing through something and not using the right language and honestly not having the right approach and attitude to it. I look forward to moving forward in the sense that I do plan to be and challenge myself with being a real ally. Thank you, Bob Zuckerman, for coming to the BallHogSportsTalk. You are welcome back anytime. I'll see you soon.
We'll talk sports next time. Go Giants.
Go Giants. Oh, yeah. Hey, who's your baseball team?
What's that?
I think Mets is your baseball team.
Is my baseball team. Giants, NFL. Sorry.
It's normally Giants, Yankees, Jets, Mets. We'll talk about. We'll bring you back to talk about how you became, Giants, Mets. But thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it, my brother.
Thank you, Bobby.
These topics, you all, are not easy. And at the BallHogSportsTalk, where sports, business, and entertainment collide, the most human thing that we can do is acknowledge when we're wrong. Yes, we're going to be provocative. We're going to say things that not everyone's going to like. But at the same time, I do want to acknowledge the human aspect of it. And knowing that I hurt my friends, I'm in the room right now where my mother lived. And unfortunately, this is where the end became near. My brother's house, I'm in Florida. My mother lived here for a while. And my mother taught me to treat all humans right, to love all humans. And so the mere thought that a friend, someone that I cherish and adore, would think that for some reason I don't love him, I'm not the person that I put myself out to be, was hurtful, to be honest. And so with that, we are going to bring on, in this Teachable Moment episode, yet another friend. Happens to be also a political figure, but it won't be politics. We're going to take the next part of the conversation with none other than a new friend on the show, Dean Daffis. Come on in, Dean. Mr. Dean Daffis. How are you, my brother?
I'm great. It's great to be with you this morning. Thank you for having me, man.
Man, thank you for coming on. And just, again, quick backdrop. Dean happens to be, I don't know if you were the first elected gay official in Maplewood. It's a sister town. There's South Orange and Maplewood for all my Floridians. Dean and I, we compete, not when it comes to LGBTQ issues, but we compete in terms of fashion because he's always the best dressed in the venue. So I'm always trying to keep up. But always a great conversation that we have. You helped me in terms of leading me into politics and navigating that. And I wanted to just sort of, you and I had a conversation last Friday too. I called you, you got noticed that these comments were made in that segment. And you and I talked, and we had some really deep moments. And I wanted to bring those deep moments here. Again, for teachable moments, please, audience members, be patient, be respectful of the fact that I've got a friend, a real friend on the show. But being quiet is I think a very good strategy. Sitting back and actually listening to taking advantage of a teachable moment. So, Bob Zuckerman mentioned Michael Sam's. You and I talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the evolution of that disclosure versus this disclosure. And I also want to talk about, if you don't mind, some of the toxic masculinity, because I do think there are levels. There are levels where such that it becomes toxic. Not all masculinity is toxic, but there is some. And your household growing up, what that's done for you. You've worked with kids, and Bob Zuckerman also mentioned the increased rate of being suicidal amongst the LGBTQ community, young LGBTQ community. So let's dive in with that. I'll start with sort of Michael Sam's versus Carl Nassib. Is it a celebration of the evolution of the announcements or something more? I'll start there.
Well, we could spend a couple shows just on that, my friend. First of
Right.
all, at the outset, I want to salute you, Bobby, for what you're doing here.
Thank
we
you.
all have blind spots. We all have blind spots, right? And to recognize them, to have an open heart and an open mind to doing better, to growing closer together to someone else or another part of the community that you're not already close to or know as well. That's the best that we can ask of us as neighbors, as humans, as friends, as family, et cetera, et cetera. And you and I, as public figures, we have that extra responsibility. I mean, you are a former NFL player, my friend. That is at the highest echelon of professional sports in our country. You're a Black man, celebrated leader, right? And you're now a public official of a town of almost 20,000 people. So taking this opportunity in this very public way to acknowledge your blind spot, though very painful to do so publicly,
Yeah.
It's a growth opportunity, it's a teachable opportunity, and it's not about me and Bob or your other LGBTQ friends. It's about the LGBTQ community and all of us growing closer together. So Bob said, I watched your discussion with Bob, which is really good. Some really deep stuff came up there. I wonder what happened with Michael Sam. And my simple answer is racism. Wow. Michael Sam came out as gay, and he's also a Black man. This white, blonde, blue-eyed guy comes out. Yes, he's an active player already, but he comes out as gay, and everyone jumps to hug him. And I really want to make this clear that what we're talking about here is the importance of people in professional sports who identify as LGBTQ to come out and why that's important, right?
Right.
We are not celebrating. I am not celebrating Carl, the man. Yes, it's great that Carl came out, and as Bob said so well, he will make it easier for others to come out. But let's remember, Carl is a very conservative, ultra-right, not just Republican, but ultra-right Trump supporter. Carl supported and stood next to Trump, the former president, when Trump was passing anti-LGBTQ legislation, which was extremely homophobic, extremely transphobic. Some of the legislation that Trump pursued was literally trying to erase trans kids from our universe, which we know is ridiculous. But, he was rolling back all of the rights that we have fought so hard for decades to get to. He was rolling them back, and he was stacking the Supreme Court, making it ultra conservative. Let's remember, the Supreme Court of the United States just a couple of weeks ago during Pride ruled that certain organizations can reject certain organizations in the business of certifying foster parents and adoption. They can reject same-sex parents because of their religion. They could say, on the basis of my religion, I don't approve of that kind of relationship, as you said earlier, or that marriage. So I'm not going to certify this child, certify them as parents, right? So that's the reality that we're in. We should live in a world where it doesn't matter, as you said before, but it does matter. And as Bob said, there's way too many LGBTQ youth in particular out there who are, thinking that they're better off dead than living openly and honestly about who they are. So it's our responsibility to celebrate them, to encourage them, to mentor them. And they need people like us to look up to. That's why Bob and I are so visible. Yes, we're not just defined by our LGBTQ status. We're a lot of other things. We're lawyers, we're advocates, Bob runs a business district. He's a successful businessman, right? You have a successful business. You're a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. There's so many other things that define us, but it's important for those kids out there who are still struggling with shame and bias, to have someone to look up to. And that is what, you're correcting. When you said last week in your show, I don't want to be a role model for somebody else. You go to your parents and let them teach you. Well, no, you are a role model, my friend, because when we look at that data about, the struggles that LGBTQ youth are still facing in our country today, when you go deeper in that data and you look at the youth of color, wow, it's
even worse.
It's even worse. There's
a not so hidden reality in the Black community that homophobia is run rampant in the Black community, and I'll admit that. And so last week, just to make the slight nuance, I said that the players shouldn't be the role models, but as a former player, I was trying to give the perspective from the locker room itself. And while I did want to be provocative and say in the locker room, the only thing that binds us is the game plan, what I did omit is the historical context and all the hurt. And that's why I'm like, we should not have tried to squeeze that into 5 minutes, because I was trying to get to just hey, I don't think players should feel the pressure to come out and support Carl Nassib. And in doing so, I completely ignored the historical pain that is in all the mistreatment, all of the feeling as though you cannot come out over the years. I do see now that the NFL is rolling out a campaign in support of the LGBTQ community, and Carl Nassib with their ad. And it's just interesting to me because, again, you talked about Michael Sam's versus Carl Nassib. It's interesting to me to see the NFL come out so quickly, which they should, but they fought tooth and nail for social justice over the last 2 years, right? They fought it, and then so it is absolutely imperative that whether it be me, and I did say parents and public, I'm both. I'm a parent and a public official now, and this is where I'm going to argue against my point last week, and our celebrities and professional athletes to understand and appreciate that historical context, in addition to, like you said, the vulnerability of kids that look up to us. And that's where I look back on and said that was careless. And so where do we go from here? And here's the teachable moment part, because I think that some of the players are reluctant to come out in support of Carl Nassib, not because they don't celebrate that he's able to love who he loves, but they don't want to say the wrong thing. And I think that avoiding the topic, if I would have just read a statement at a public meeting and I can't wait to get this behind me, I would have just been another part of the problem. All right. So how do we make people more comfortable having this tough discussion? Because it's a tough discussion and things are evolved quickly. Even the use, I wrote it in the description, the word homosexual. So obviously I didn't know that we had evolved such that that's a clinical term no longer to be used. How do we get people more comfortable with having this discussion, even though it's uncomfortable, and encourage them, because our kids are watching?
Right. By coming to the table with open heart and mind, as you're doing today, by not persecuting people, by not judging them for their blind spots. If it's ignorance and not malice, okay, which applies here in this particular case with
Absolutely.
your comments, then we have a duty as fellow neighbors and humans to come to the table and have these conversations. And yeah, they are tough conversations, and we don't always use the right words. But as you said, words do matter. Words can kill, right? Words can perpetuate shame and stigma that the LGBTQ community still feels today, despite how far we have come since the 50s and the 60s, right? In fact, what I heard, one of the things that I heard predominantly from your show last week was, keep it to yourself. It's your business. I'm okay with you if you're gay. That's fine, man. It's all good. I celebrate you, but just keep it to yourself. You don't need to tell people. Don't tell people in the media. Don't tell people in the locker room. I don't need to know that part of you. And that's basic. What I heard there is don't ask, don't tell. Right? That was the where we were before. Don't ask, don't tell means what?
That was the military. That was it. For those who don't know, that was the military approach to the LGBTQ community. And what did that do to our military personnel when we did have that approach? Don't ask, don't tell. I'll let you share.
It made them go back in the closet, because what was happening was people were witch hunting, right? Looking for someone who they suspected was LGBTQ, following them during weekend passes or allowances, the time off. Are they going to a gay bar, right? Or the worst, and this leads us to the next part of our conversation you want to have today. Does Dean pass? Is he straight acting enough? So I'm not really sure if he's gay, so I'm not going to bother going there. Or is he effeminate and I'm sure he's gay, so I'm going to out him to military personnel? All of those people a lot of people who served during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, when they were discovered as gay, right? Mm-hmm. Even, off base or on base, they were dishonorably charged. And still today, these people have not received the honor that they deserve. They have served our country, many of them in battle, my friend, in the front lines, serving our country and ensuring that we have the freedom to do what you and I are doing on this show so well this morning. And they have the highest dishonor against them because of who they love, right? So to say to people, you know what, keep it to yourself, is to perpetuate that shame, that it's shameful. And we know in the Black community and in a lot of other other communities where pray the gay away, growing up in the church, and all of that stuff is prevalent still today. We know that there are people who have that shame. There are a lot of talented kids in our two communities, Bobby, who want to play sports, but they're afraid. They're either making this choice. Well, I'm not going to go play because they're not going to accept me. I'm gay, right? Or I have to hide that I'm gay and live in secret, be in the closet, lead a double life, and I would say to someone, you know what? The person that I want to be next to in the locker room, gay or straight, is someone who is honest, right? That's the person that I want to know, because I can rely on that person on the field, on the front lines.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that's
absolutely.
Trust, isn't there? So we don't want to tell people to go back in the closet, keep it to yourself, just do it when you're home. We want people to say, you know what, you are who you are, and you should wave your flag. I'll wave my flag, you wave your flags, and together we'll stand one next to the other, side by side. So
I love it.
Let's talk about toxic masculinity. So I grew up,
especially in sports, because I know that you have a personal anecdote, and then we'll pivot from here and get back to the show. But I think and I say get back to the show in the sense that we've got some sports topics, but I want this to connect to the sports topic, the toxic masculinity, things like, hey, stop dribbling like a girl, all right? Or if you're crying after a loss, stop crying like a girl. There is this uber hyper masculinity in sports. Let's talk about that and in connection to sort of the toxic masculinity in a household, and then we'll get you out of here for today. But we gotta have you back. But if you would please expound.
Yeah, man. So, listen, you and I grew up probably in similar households or cultures. My parents were very religious. I grew up in the church. And at school, I went to, a Catholic school, where it was very regimented, right? And it wasn't very diverse by any means. There's a certain way that you're supposed to act during gym, right? And I knew early on, as early as 8 years old, I didn't know what gay meant. Obviously, I wasn't sexually active at 8 years old, right? This is why, again, when we talk about LGBTQ, it's not about sex, y'all.
Relationship.
It's about
Right.
a bigger thing, right?
Absolutely.
So at 8 years old, I knew I was different than the other boys because I couldn't pass as a straight boy like they could. I tried, but the more that I tried, the more I was called a sissy. Right? The more my father would, punish me when he saw that I walked like a queen or like a sissy, or when I ran or I passed the ball. I was actually a really good tennis player when I was young, but I was told over and over again, there was never any room for someone like me unless I tried harder to act like a guy is supposed to act, like a real man. So that led my family to take me into conversion therapy. There was the Bible, pray the gay away at first, and the Bible camps and all that stuff. And that led to actual conversion therapy, where you're working with a therapist to teach you how to not be who you are, to try and convert you from who you are.
Wow.
Don't put your legs, don't talk like this, don't use your hands, lower your voice. Right. In my case at the time, thank God they're not doing it like this anymore. I underwent electroshock therapy. Right.
Wow.
So every time that I, was sissy like, I'd get electrocuted, my friend, over and over again. I was 13 years old. Right. That led to a very long, early adult life of shame, of self-doubt, self-harm, getting married, a heterosexual marriage, and just being dishonest about who I was. When I finally came out later, in my 30s again, right? I had already come out. Everybody was so much more embracing of me. They were like, Dean, we always knew you were gay. We didn't care about that. And we were so sorry to see you struggle like that. My colleagues said the same thing. Everywhere in my life, I realized, oh, wow, I wasted 30 some years of my life trying to be someone that I'm not and trying to erase myself. Right. So that's what happens in the locker room. Right. There is this idea that if you're not tough in that way, and if you don't pass like the other guys do, then that's a negative and you need to change that. And it's okay to bully you. And it's okay to try and erase you. And that's where the masculinity, which, like you said, in of itself is not a bad thing, that's when it becomes toxic. And that's when it leads to violence. We know there's a lot of violence against our trans kids right now about they're using the locker room and restroom that aligns and affirms their identity, right? Their gender identity. That's happening right here in Jersey. Blue, liberal, progressive Jersey. That's happening in South Orange and Maplewood in our schools sometimes, when our trans kids are not allowed to use the restroom that they want to use. What do we care where someone pees, right? But apparently,
perfectly said.
Right. But that is why it's beyond just the words. It's offensive and harmful, not potentially harmful, but harmful, because what we're saying to those kids and to all the sports players. And remember, everything that we're talking about is exponentially worse for persons of color, for queer persons of color, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're saying it's okay to be ashamed, and it's okay to consider suicide, and it's okay to harm yourself and live in the closet or worse,
Well, here on the Ball Hog Sports Talk, as of today, we're saying it's not okay. And last week, with some very tacky and harmful language, I left the door open that it might be. And so I apologized last Friday. I've talked to you throughout the week. We've had these conversations. We have a friendship. Again, instead of looking at the very bad moment that I had last week and during those 5 minutes as let's get beyond this. I'm looking forward to putting it in front of us and being an ally going forward. I apologize to you privately. I'm going to apologize to you publicly. But this is not the last time you'll be on the Ball Hog Sports Talk, because you watch our show regularly. So we got to have you back, because you were going into talking about bathrooms. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's a show in itself. We talked about the racial components of Michael Sam. So I'll make sure I call my scheduling agent, which happens to be me, and get you on here again. But thank you seriously for your contributions to the Ball Hog Sports Talk, for the historical perspective that you shared with me and the audience. This teachable moment will make me better as an ally, and hopefully other audience members. And let's make sure that we do support our kids, no matter what community they identify. So with that, again, thanks for coming through. Dean Daffis here at the Ball Hog Sports Talk. We'll see you soon, my brother.
Thank you, Bobby. And listen, Bobby, you can be an incredible ally. A lot of kids look up to you, my friend. They really do.
Looking forward to it.
A lot of our men, and we need you. We need like you. So let's do it.
I'm looking forward to it, and I know you'll hold me accountable. So let's do it together, brother.
You got it. Thank you, man.
All right. Look, guys, I took the time to do that, to have the conversation, because I do think it is that important. When I look back on the words, knowing what I was thinking when I said it, but knowing how they were then received, and hearing my friends, true friends and colleagues, hearing their response was a life changer for me, an eye opener for me. And I hope that all of you, no matter where you are on the continuum in terms of how comfortable you are with LGBTQ community, how comfortable you are with the verbiage and having the conversation, we got to do better, because to hear that there is such a high suicide rate among our young people, and to hear stories like Dean's of going through electroshock therapy, it saddens me as someone that was taught to love all people by my mom, and I hope it saddens you. With that, we're going to take a little quick pause, and we're going to pivot and get right back into some sports, business, entertainment. Thank you. Like I said, always, please like, please comment, please share, tag a friend, tag a foe, tag anybody that you know. Stay tuned. We got a little more sports, business, entertainment before we get out of here for the week. You know who that is. That mug right there with all the sun around it. You put a hat over it now. Is the Big Flow Show.
What's good, America? Back. What's good? What's good, man? What's good? Hey, thank you to the two guests that we had at the beginning. I think it was important to have those segments. One thing I'll take away, and then I know we'll move forward, is that people have disagreements, and they have times where they're offended. It was nice to be able to come on and just calmly tell people exactly what was going on and how they felt, without being aggressive and making whatever, because that becomes more polarizing. I know a lot of the guests on our show probably took the time to listen to it and they can self-reflect. I learned some stuff. So thank you to both those guests today. I think that was definitely insightful.
And really, really awesome people, man. So I was happy that they both agreed when I asked. And I'm glad we did that. Packing in that segment, last 5 minutes, you were texting me, hey, I got to get out of here. I wish we wouldn't have reached and tried to rush it. But if we would not have made that mistake, and that's what I'm going to call it, a mistake, we would not have had that opportunity to educate our audience. And so to whom much is given, much shall be expected. And I hope the Ball Hog Sport Talk keeps high expectations. That was an amazing, amazing exchange. I'm glad we did it. But we also got to get into some other issues. So we are, in July now. Pride Month was last month. I can't believe I made the mistake during Pride Month. But now we're into July, which is big time basketball month. That's a joke. Normally it's not. Normally we're done in June, but we're still having NBA talk. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about the Olympics. We're going to talk about name, image, and likeness. We're going to do it quickly because the show is running a bit longer than normal. But before we do, introducing to some and just acknowledging to others. The Ball Hog Sports Talk not only is taking a big giant step forward because of the discussion that we just had, but we're taking a big giant step forward because the man behind the machine we decided he shouldn't be behind the machine no more. I'm gonna call him ETP, and that's Ellis, the producer. Is going to be on screen from now on. For those of you who have come on the show as a guest, you know Ellis is the one making all the controls. A good brother, absolutely great brother. We argue so much in the post production that we decided that we had to give our fans a little more entertainment. So welcome to the show. We wish we had a big no limit chain or a Rockefeller chain to welcome you, my brother, because it's official. And you come right in with that Boston Red Sox hat. I guess you want everybody to know you're a Boston fan. Is that what this is?
Listen, man, you don't have enough representation. We got first time ever the third base and shortstop position in the All-Star game this year is Boston Red Sox, and we're doing pretty well. So
they still play baseball?
They do. Surprisingly, it still happens around these parts. So
you see, dude got caught cheating, man. We don't even have that on the list of topics, but the first pitcher got caught cheating. So I guess there is baseball going on.
We did. They're strip searching them and everything. So it's become a little bit more provocative than they're trying to spice it up. The game needs more ratings. So I think they're in a good position.
What kind of bird is that tweeting in the background there, Reg? Reg is in the. We can't tell people where you are, man, because that's how you put yourself in harm's way. But you're somewhere different than normal, because ain't no birds like that in Chicago.
Facts. I think that's a toucan or a parakeet. I can't tell exactly which one it is, but there's a lot of birds that are flying around here. Some pelicans. I saw pelicans the other day, but no, I'm not scared to tell you guys I'm in Florida right now. Suffering through some sunny days and beaches and all kinds of stuff like that, but that's all right. I still have time for everybody to come on to the Big Flow. Nope, not the Big Flow show. I just tried to.
It is this part. You are the Big Flow show.
I'm the Big Flow show coming to the BallHogSportsTalk. I want to come out and make sure I didn't miss anything, so I just told them, go on to the beach, everybody. Go on and have fun. I got work to do. Time to come out on the show. I knew Ellis was going to be on today. I couldn't miss the inaugural Ellis episode. You know what I mean? This is going to go double platinum. So anyway, welcome to the show, the Enigma. Yeah, I saw earlier.
The Enigma. And so Ellis, you gonna start us off, right? I mean, you've controlled the show forever, man. We love having you on the show, and let's get it in, man. What's up? How are we starting this?
So yeah, man. I mean, I'm going away from the Suge Knight approach, getting more on this Diddy, bring the producer all in the videos,
all up in the videos.
So we'll do some quick hits. It's just there's been a lot of stuff this week. I think to start, one thing that's interesting in segueing from the discussion. So 60 years ago, the Yankees were written a letter by a young girl. She was 10 years old, and she had applied to be the Batgirl for the Yankees, and that was in June 23rd, 1961. Her name, last name was Goldman. And they basically said, we agree, girls are important, but we just are not able to bring you into the role. And her granddaughter or her daughter, 60 years later, wrote a letter requesting, and the Yankees basically brought her in at 70 years old, made her day. She was over the moon about it. But just a really interesting story because
that is interesting. So they got a 70-year-old Batgirl. I don't know much about baseball, but some tells me a 70-year-old being a Batgirl has its limitations. But go ahead, Yankees. That is good to right that wrong. Never too late to do what's right when you did.
They made her right. They had to sign one of the waivers and stuff. If she can't get out the way, baby, I don't know.
Like she gotta be careful what she asks for. Be careful what you ask for. But I think that them denying her only because she was a girl. Basically, there's no girls in baseball. No crying in baseball, but they said no girls in baseball. Good for the Yankees, and good for you as a Boston Red Sox fan. Did that be your opening story, man? What else you got for this week, brother?
Listen, without the Yankees, I'm not a Red Sox fan. I'm all about rivalry. So
there you go. I like it.
So yeah, I mean, in the baseball realm, you got UConn. Their pitcher Justin Willis for the university was actually in the condominium building in Surfside, Florida, that collapsed and got out of there about 15 feet. He was 15 feet from where the edge of the building collapsed. So the whole building didn't collapse. He was there on vacation in his grandparents' condo and was able to speak about it. So just sad, really tragic. They're still checking the rubble, trying to recover as many people as they can. But from a sports perspective, just tragic story, but good that this pitcher can continue on with his life and his family. And it's just a really, prolonged disaster that's happening. And, I think we always want to call those out in the show.
Yeah, man, it's in Miami. I happen to be in South Florida as well right now, visiting family. But in Miami, that story is, you just never know. The teachable moment there is live every day, right? Because you just never know. An entire building collapses, which you don't think could ever happen, but indeed it could happen. And I'm glad to see that this particular pitcher from UConn and his family was able to escape. But the teachable moment there is, man, you got to live every day like it's your last, because you never know. What else you got for us, E?
Yeah, so in the college World Series, sticking with baseball in college, Vanderbilt actually lost to Mississippi State to win the College World Series. But before that, NC State had one player test positive for COVID. And as a result, they entered into COVID protocols and had to forfeit the semifinal. And given that teams are now bringing in people into full stadiums, it's just a really interesting story that even in this times, obviously Chris Paul with the NBA, but you have essentially the entire NCAA tournament getting compromised because of COVID still to this day.
I mean, on one way you look at it and say, all right, well, through the whole baseball, you heard of one case, so we're moving ahead. But the other side, you say, hey, aren't people vaccinated? Shouldn't this be something that you shouldn't have to do the protocol as well? Because even if he caught it, if everyone's vaccinated, they shouldn't be able to get it. It shouldn't spread. So I don't know. I kind of feel bad, for the team. You get that far as we've come, as much as we've given up, that it comes down to that. So, but again, luckily for the story, Vanderbilt won anyway, so they can say we would have beat you guys too.
Do you think that, because your son will be a college athlete soon, do you think that the NCAA or the institutions themselves should make vaccination mandatory? I don't know if this particular player was vaccinated, but should they make it mandatory? Just quickly.
No, I don't think the NCAA should make it mandatory. I think that these protocols, the team should make it mandatory. I think each individual school should say, hey, I want you guys to get vaccinated because this can happen. And the NCAA is going to keep the rules where they are, and I think that'll pressure people into doing it. I don't think they should be the one. NCAA can't get anything right anyway. So I don't know. I just can't understand why the teams haven't made it mandatory, or why the kids wouldn't just jump forward. My son was like, let me get vaccinated as soon as possible. He doesn't want to miss anything. So.
Ellis, what you got? What else you got for us? The production meeting with the producer, ETP Ellis, the producer. What else you got, man?
Yeah, so totally different. Switching gears, we don't talk about a lot on the show. Cycling. So Tour de France, there was a fan in the stage one of the race.
Cycling? What do you say? Cycling.
Cycling.
What you say?
Cycling.
Recycling? What you mean?
Bicycling.
Bicycling. Okay.
So. Yeah, so basically somebody in the stage one of the competition, they wanted to get on camera. They held up a sign that said, "Go Grandma and Grandpa," and it went into the field of play or onto the track and caused dozens of bikers to essentially crash. 2 people had to go to the hospital. The fan was on the run, on the lam, as they say, for about 3 days. And then they were finally apprehended and hit with a lawsuit, but the race organizers decided to actually withdraw the lawsuit to sue the fan, I guess. And there's now a current situation where the cyclists that were affected individually are trying to make a decision on how they're going to proceed, because
you can't sue nobody for putting up a sign for their grandma. The teachable moment is, if you're going to be stupid, make sure it's directed towards your grandma. Because I don't think this lady's going to get in that much trouble. And I don't think she should. But you got to be careful, man. And I know we always do it because everybody's stunting for the gram. She was stunting and putting the doggone sign out for grandma. Hey, grandma, I'm here. And a cyclist ran into the sign and essentially ruined Tour de France.
You got to blame the organizers. I know the Tour de France is like 2,100 miles or something like that. So it's going to be a lot of holdback, but each area needs to have their own crowd control to hold people back. Of course, she had her moment. Everyone wants her 15 seconds of fame that they can come out with the sign and shout out.
Hers is infamy. It wasn't fame. She's infamous.
Shout out to grandma. I never could, get mad at someone for shouting out to grandma, but you shouldn't be able to get in front of the bicycle people like that. There should be somebody, a get back coach. They need a get back.
Yeah.
The Tour de France needs a get back coach. That's what they need.
Get back. Quality control. That's what they call the get back coach.
Yeah.
What else you got in the production meeting, Ellis?
Well, I bet you will not do that at the F1 race next time. So
straight up. I guarantee she ain't gonna be out there with them F1 drivers.
For sure. So next one is a unique job in the NBA. So there's information that's come out about how much the NBA floor sweepers make. The players fall, sweat on the floor, need to make sure that nobody's slipping and sliding. Obviously very crucial to the safety and progression of the game, but has come to be known that they make upwards of, or on average, about 80,000, upwards of 100,000, depending on bonuses and incentives, whatever that entails. We can
Nobody
discuss.
slips.
But yeah, right. So your
slips
slip rate is slip rate as low as possible. So just a really interesting story. You don't talk about the people that actually produce the activity behind the game. It's always about the athletes.
The teachable moment there is don't block your blessings. You can imagine somebody in a bar and a person walks up and the exchange is, what you do for a living? I clean floors. You're not normally the next thing won't be, let me give you my number. You just immediately assume that they might be beneath the status in which you are trying to date. Don't block your blessings, because these people, brothers and sisters, getting paid to clean them NBA floors. And sign me up. I can do it on the weekend, NBA. Holla at your boy.
They never have a game when I'm working, so I'm all over that. Let's go.
I wonder if they're gonna. They might have to start a college major for it. They make so much money.
Straight up.
They do. I do wonder what they do. Put in a lot of elbow grease when they get out there with that thing. Look like they're curling the way that those hit the floor. Now I know why.
I always wonder why they working so hard. Now I know why they working so hard. They getting paid. They get work hard for that doggone check. I see it. What else you got, man?
Maybe it's like the soccer players that, they retire from the Premier League and go play in the MLS. You got these Canadian curlers retire from the Olympics and come sweep floors.
Go clean that
in
floor,
the NBA
baby.
for the bag.
The next step, get paid. Yep. What else you got for us?
On the NBA front, Carmelo Anthony, first recipient of the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar NBA Social Justice Award, inaugural year.
Word up, Melo. Don't count him out. Moral of that story, the teachable moment is you can always reinvent yourself. Melo's balling on the court and off the court. Shout out to him, man. And I love that award to encourage social justice. So good job, Melo.
Yeah, man.
Didn't Miles Garrett win an award like that too after Helmet Gate? So everybody can reinvent themselves. You got a chance.
Hey,
don't mess with my Browns. Go ahead, Ellis. He trying to hate.
Humans have many layers. So I mean, moving along. So those are the quick hits. Just wanted to pull up that. I guess the next piece is just getting into the main topics. And one of the main topics of the week was with Scottie Pippen really starting to come out and promote all of his business ventures, his book, his whiskey, his everything that he's got going on. I think.
What do y'all think about that? Because
new hairstyle.
He doing this, he doing that.
You know me. I feel like if you can stunt your hair at 50-something, if you can stunt with your hair, stunt with it. I can't be mad at the hairstyles. And he's ugly no matter what he does, so he might as well just go ahead and just embrace the ugliness.
Can't call nobody ugly no more, man. He's beautifully challenged, aesthetically challenged. Don't call
aesthetically challenged.
Call that man
ugly. That. My fault.
But
teachable moment.
Teachable moment. It does sound like, though, with Scottie Pippen, he almost sounds like he got an axe to grind. So hearing these excerpts come out, I don't know whether or books and stuff, which he's selling a book because of the axe to grind that he has. Even with the Michael Jordan relationship, that the little excerpts would come out. Now, Phil Jackson, we have seen people be retroactive in how we respond to their sexual deviancy, a la, R. Kelly. And in this week, Bill Cosby. We look back on it and it changed your entire outlook on that figure as you knew him, whether it be R. Kelly's music or Bill Cosby's shows. Does this taint how we look at Phil Jackson's, the championships, him as a coach? What do y'all think? Because if true, some of the stuff didn't sound like racism. It sounded more like different eras and how you approach being a professional. because coaches have always told us we can't wear our hair a certain way. You got to wear this to a game. So that didn't sound like racism to me, but some of it had racist like implications. Does this taint Phil Jackson's legacy as a coach?
I don't think it does. At the end of the day, he won a bunch of championships. He's the best NBA coach there ever was. Are we surprised that a person born in 1945 has some of those views? I mean, earlier
45. He was born in Colt 45.
If you look at the show, if you look at the way we began this show, there's a mistake. It's 2021, and you use a term that 10 years ago everybody used. It was no big deal.
I think 2 years ago everybody used.
Everyone used it. 2 weeks ago I used it. I didn't know until today, or when we talked about the show, that you couldn't say that word. I had no idea that was any negative connotation about it, and I think people learn from that. So when I go back to Phil Jackson, we allowed people to call us thugs if we were dressed a certain way. We allowed people to do that, and now we put our foot down and said, you know what, thug is code, right? And now people can't really say it like they used to say it. They still say it, but like when he said it a few years back, a lot of people were saying that. A lot of people were doing it. When he said the black basketball versus white basketball, half those dudes probably said that. I'm not giving him a pass because I'm not inviting him to the barbecue anyway, but he's still the greatest basketball coach, NBA coach ever lived.
That's debatable, but that's not. We're not here for that debate. But go ahead. What you say? E?
Yeah. No, I think it's just interesting because there's clearly been a lot of evidence right now that Scottie Pippen said what he said, and I don't think he was very sophisticated in his accusations of Phil Jackson as being racist, but it did require a reinvestigation of generally just his history in terms of potential prejudice or racism, however it's defined. And I think it's worthy of some level of analysis. But
are you gonna buy the book?
It's not surprising.
Are you gonna buy the book?
I think I'm gonna buy the book. I might.
Oh,
I don't know. I think I'm gonna wait till there's more stories that come out. Yeah, the bourbon. I'll get the bourbon.
You see the bourbon? The handle is just this. It got this. It's just his hand.
Big old hand on.
Weirdest. What's it called? Grip.
Touch? I think. No.
Digits.
It's so stupid. A picture of his hand. He just asked you to. He got the calluses. What's going on?
So you didn't say yes or no. Are you saying yes? You're gonna buy the book, Big Flo?
I'm not going to buy the book, but I'll borrow it from Ellis when he's done with it.
I think I'm going to buy the book. So he's 2 for 3 at this point. If he's trying to sell books, at least in this context, he's 67%. Because I think I'm going to buy the book now.
I'm going to buy the bourbon, though.
You're going to buy the bourbon. All right. NBA playoffs. Buy one, get one free. In the spirit of Phil Jackson, we got to talk about NBA playoffs. So we're going to be moving pretty fast right now. Lightning round, if you will. Very good topics, but we had to talk about the teachable moment. And so in the spirit of not making it too long, we're going to shorten up these segments. But I absolutely have to bring up the NBA playoffs because Monty Williams and James Jones and CP3 and Devin Booker have the Phoenix Suns in the NBA championship. And there's still some good basketball being played. Atlanta got blown out last night with both Trae Young and the Greek Freak sidelines with injuries. So injuries continues to be the theme of the NBA playoffs, but we got to hop into, CP3 and what you guys think. Who's going to win it ultimately? I'll start with you, Big Flo. I know, your Bulls been BSing for a long time. See what I did there?
How did the Bulls get this conversation?
I just wanted to
because you playoff conversation for so
long. You brought Myles Garrett in, so that's right. I'm talking about the Bulls.
Turn around, man of the year. Anyway. We'll argue about that all day. First of all, I'm going to shout out Monty Williams because he is a domer.
He is a Notre Dame.
Because my funny Monty Williams stories, I used to live on top of Monty in summer school, and I used to play my Kenwood speakers real loud, play my Tupac, and he would move the ceiling tiles and bang on the ceiling, tell me to turn down, and call me on the phone and say, turn the music down. And he would call me a couple words and hang up the phone. So for him to go from that to coach of the year, I had to say, Monty, you've come a long way since you used to cuss me out of college. So anyway.
Well, Monty don't like Tupac. Come on, Monty. But go ahead.
He didn't like the volume. He didn't like me trying to show my Kenwoods off. Back in the day, boy. Yeah, your speakers. Y'all too young for that. Y'all know about that. But anyway.
Playing your 8-tracks? What were you doing?
My 8-tracks. Blowing that thing, program. Anyway, so shout out to Monty for that. But you know what? The thing about CP3, it's like he's the healthiest superstar available. and he's out there. So if he wins this championship, I'm not gonna say asterisk, but are they gonna say, is there gonna be a but? At the end of this, well, everybody got hurt. Okay, you won, but everybody got hurt because LeBron's looking like he's telling the truth now. Nobody can say healthy. CP3 is the only one, and I think Ellis said it yesterday. I'm gonna steal it that he's the one that always gets hurt in the playoff. He's the only one standing right now. Crazy. I don't understand. So I hope he wins one though. Let's go and get you one.
Yeah. Ellis, do you think that what you think about? First of all, James Jones, right, is also a part of that narrative because he put together the pieces. But is it the Suns' championship to lose at this point?
It's hard to say. I think so, right? They slayed some dragons for sure, so they're definitely the favorite. But the way this is all, I mean, who would have thought that the Hawks would have been in the Eastern Conference Finals? That's crazy. But the Suns came out; they were 8-0 in the bubble, and obviously they showed that it wasn't a fluke. And then they got Chris Paul, who's been making magic. He's been traveling around the league and making men out of these young boys and really leading teams. So I think the real storyline that nobody's really talking about is no matter who comes out of the East, whoever the NBA Finals is going to have on the entire roster, and neither coach have ever been to the NBA Finals on either team. So everybody that's going to play in the finals will have never been there.
Do you think that enhances? I've got my take, and I'll tell you after you answer. Do you think that enhances the attractiveness of watching it, or does that mean that the viewership is likely to go down?
I think likely to go down.
Yeah, I think it's likely to go down, but at the same time, what we're seeing with the league is it's such a transient league with free agency and players having more empowerment that we're just seeing that the power is not consolidated anymore. Right.
I've got a bet.
I think the competition is making it better.
I've got a bet that it's going to go down. So selfishly, I'm hoping it does go down. But if it does go up, all I owe is a hot beer because he didn't specify. He didn't say cold beer. So we bet a beer on it. So it's not a big bet. But I think it goes down because, as fans, man, we front runners. We want to know. Like, I've missed a few games over the last few weeks. I didn't see them for whatever reason. I've been traveling. I've been with family. And I don't feel like I really missed out on something. Whereas that era, I'm biased. Okay, the Miami Heat, when we had, our run going to the finals 4 straight years. During that time frame,
2-2.
We were 2-2, but they stole one from us. But that's a whole nother story. We should have been.
Brian had hair back then.
Yeah. He did almost a little fade or something too.
He never had a fade,
but don't have hair now. But during that era, if you missed a game, it was like, man, your whole night was messed up. I can't believe I didn't see the game. It doesn't feel that way now. So we'll see what happens. I'm a Patrick Beverley fan. And him pushing CP3 in the back to me is the highlight of all the playoffs right now. Because to be a sore loser, to me, is to be a good winner. If you like losing, if you're okay with losing, that by definition makes you a loser. I know pundits have had issue with his cheap shot pushing the back, but I ain't have an issue with it. Hey, man, you ain't supposed to like losing. I'm hoping that Trae Young is able to come back. Greek Freak is able to come back because if neither one can come back and create some continuity before whichever team decides to come out of the East proceeds, it seems like the Suns they should be getting measured for their rings. But you saw the first person announced, the first person to touch the ring wasn't anybody that played on the court. So boys and girls, just like we started off the show, trying to make sure that we clarify some of our issues about the LGBTQ community. I'll say this for the young people. Don't think just because you got a broke jump shot, you can't be a part of a championship run because management is the way to go. He was the first person that they named. He was the first person to touch the trophy, and he didn't shoot not nan jump shot. So management might be the way to go, little boys and girls. Any other final words, NBA playoffs, before we hop into the next topic? You guys good? Let's get into the Olympics, man.
Suns in 4.
Suns in 4. Like your math messed up. Hey, but we got to get into the U.S. Olympics because out of the blue, a story last night breaks, and Sha'Carri Richardson fails a drug test. And looking at her times, I immediately, and this is why you can't assume, because when you assume, you know what you do. I immediately thought, man, I knew she was on them whatever the performance enhancement drugs because of the times that she was running. And it turns out that she failed a drug test because the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency still tests for cannabis. That's a real fancy medical clinical term for weed. And if you real old school, reefer.
Reefers.
She failed a drug test for a substance that is actively being legalized everywhere. And the type of money that she's going to lose, because she was like the face of U.S. track. Honestly, she had become the face of U.S. track in this weird way. So let's start there and then get into all the amazing feats at the U.S. Olympic trials, talk about any of the Olympic stories. But let's start with Sha'Carri and move from there. Do you think that she should be banned for weed? I'll start with you, Ellis.
I don't even want to dignify it, but ultimately it's not performance enhancing. It's legal, and I think medicinally it's legal in more than half.
It depends on the strain. It might be performance enhancing. You can get some of that good, and you might mess around and run a little. I don't know.
It depends on what you're performing.
That orange diesel.
Right. I guess it depends on what you're performing if it enhances it. But
right,
given the legalization, I think it's antiquated, and it's unfortunate because clearly, if anything, that detracts from your training, right? It's for recovery. It's been known, CBD, other cannabis byproducts are used for recovery and sports training regimens. So I think it's antiquated. It's unfortunate. Hopefully she gets to run. We'll see how it goes.
I think the way that the timestamp starts, it's like when the test happened, she still could be available for the 4x1. Yeah. But I think she misses the first round of the 100. What do you think about it, Big Flo?
Is she being suspended by the U.S. A team or by the?
I think it's whatever. Great question. I don't know the answer, but there is a suspension.
I think they got to find a way to make her play. I mean, she can't. She's a little itty bitty girl trying to run. She can't drink alcohol, mess with your sport. She got to do a little something to ease her tension. She wants to celebrate. Her mama just died. I mean, she smoked a little weed. I mean, come on, man. Are we really doing this? Are we really taking people's Olympic dreams away over some trees? Everybody smoking. The dude who's
the Olympic dream. The Olympic dream is one thing, but let's be honest. Like the way to really capitalize off of being a track star, man, that window is short. It's very defined. She's 19 years old, so I don't think, or 19. I don't know if she turned 20, but she's, only did her freshman year at LSU, so very young. She'll probably be, in the conversation at least one, if not two more Olympics, maybe even three. But with injuries being so prevalent in the sport of track, you don't want to take it for granted. I think that window of being able to take advantage of all the commercial opportunities that come your way for a track star is very limited. And it better have been some good weed, because she threw away a whole heap of money. Everybody was tuning in to see her run against Shelly and Fraser Price. Everybody, or Shelly, I always mess up her name. You know what I'm talking about, from Jamaica. Everybody wanted to see that race. On every track blog, people are weighing in who they're gonna go with, and she went and threw it away for some reefers.
You sound like Stephen A. Smith.
Look, I don't frown upon cannabis at all. I see that the legalization of it is happening everywhere. So I think you're right. It's antiquated for the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency to still have this substance banned such that it could prevent someone from competing. I agree there. But the fact that it is on the list, I don't care if you are the most active weed head imaginable. At some point, and I agree with Big Flo, maybe as a coping mechanism for dealing with the loss of her mother, but at some point you got to put the weed down. This is a payday. This is big money. Like, you might be on the cover of the Wheaties box. General Mills, you know what I mean, might be calling you to be on the front of a box. And so for me, yes, the story is about the antiquated use of that particular doping policy, but it's also about bad decision making, and have the right people around you. Whoever passed you that blunt or joint or whatever,
I hope they got $20 million for you, because
they need their tail whooped. You got to have better people around you to be like, nah, this ain't for you, sis. Not now. not now. We'll be here when you get back from Tokyo, and we'll smoke up after that. But not now. I just wish she wouldn't be in the headlines for the wrong reasons. Other better headlines among the U.S. Olympic trials. It's the youth movement, man. We saw a thing move from New Jersey. Yeah. We saw. You'd be hating, man. It's the youth movement. We also saw Sydney McLaughlin from New Jersey. They're breaking records at an amazing rate, and we are seeing now the shift from the household names to this whole new group of young stars. Do you think that eliminates that cloud of doubt that we've had over track, that every time you see a good time, you automatically think that they're doping? Is it just now the evolution of track such that these young people are coming into their own? Or are we still looking at some of these times like, man, I don't know. You had the 17-year-old, make the U.S. Olympic team. What's going on? Is it something they putting in the food?
Yeah. So just for context, so that's Arian Knighton, broke two of Usain Bolt's youth records. I think U18 and U20 world records. So if you never heard of Usain Bolt, fastest human being ever. So clearly there's something to be said about this kid.
I don't know. I think so. With watching that, it was the 400 hurdles that McLaughlin won, right?
Yep. She made the Olympic team she was in the Olympic. She made the Olympic team as like a 17-year-old something. I know she was in the Olympic conversation as a sophomore or junior in high school. So she's been around. So it's not surprising that she broke the record, but it's like, man, like every time you turn on the TV, another record is going down the track. And I used to look at all those records like, who cares? They were doping. But I think there's something more to it now.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. They're starting earlier. People are just getting better training younger than they were before, and they're just starting to mature. All the hormones in the milk. I don't know what it is. But at the end of the day, I like to see records broken. I just like to see sports progress and move forward. And it's a beautiful young lady. She out there. She's running, hitting her dreams. And that wasn't even in the finals she broke the record. Wasn't it like in the semis?
I think it was semis.
Yeah,
it was in the rounds. Right.
We'll see what happens when she gets to the Olympics.
Yeah, I'm rooting for her.
Not smoking those reefers.
She's definitely not smoking. Well, if she is smoking those reefers, she waited 30 days to stop smoking the reefers or whatever, 60 days before she was tested. But we would be remiss to talk about the U.S. Olympics and not talk about the men's basketball team. LeBron is not on the U.S. men's basketball team. There are other names. Anthony Edwards is being accused of getting the Christian Laettner spot, the last spot. What do you guys think about the squad as it is? Do we win it again? Do we reclaim our dominance in basketball? Because the rest of the world has been catching up. And we know that because you look at first team All-NBA. 3 of them were not born on the sunny shores of the United States. They were not born in the U.S. They were born elsewhere. So is this going to be the team that gets us back to that dominance? I'll start with you, Ellis.
I'm just surprised that all of these guys, after 2 seasons, shortened seasons, not a lot of breaks. I'm surprised. KD, obviously, he's been out for, he's been not playing for longer than he's been playing. So I'm not surprised about him. But Dame Lillard, Draymond Green, a lot of guys that have a lot of miles on them, and they're stepping up for the country. It's surprising, but I'm glad. It's not necessarily going to be a B team. It's definitely got a lot of all-stars. I'm surprised about Kevin Love. I don't know where that came from. I really love the Anthony Edwards. Hopefully he pulls off a Vince Carter part 2 and jumps over somebody and dunks it, but we'll see. I'm excited for it. I think it's a good squad.
Oh, you like the squad? Do you think it gets us back to dominance, the Big Flow Show?
Yeah, I think we're going to dominate. You have this foreign-born players, but off the top of my head, none of them are from the same country, right?
Say that again.
Giannis, the Joker, whatever, and Luka. They're not from the same country, so I still don't think they're going to have the collections.
I think the Joker and why I always mess up my man's names. I want to say Dragic, but not Dragic, from Dallas. Luka. I think the Jokic and Luka are from the same region of the world.
Yeah, but not the same
not
team.
the same country.
So
Right.
they don't have the collection of talent. They're not going to be able to do the right things. I do think I want to know if KD somehow doesn't win, does this taint his? I mean, he already didn't win the championship. He couldn't do it by himself. And now, if he loses this gold medal, are they going to start talking about him besides just his bad hair? The way they talk about LeBron, they're going to taint his stuff. It seems like nobody wants to taint his legacy the way that they taint LeBron's.
I think they do. I think they taint his legacy. It's just when you have LeBron in the same era, LeBron's going to take all the heat. He's going to take the bullets. There's just as many people that are detractors of Kevin Durant, and they're mad that he joined Golden State. And they are saying, look, he couldn't win it alone, which when you look at that roster, I think it's irrational.
I thought it was just my bad.
Yeah, no, I think that when you look at that roster and what happened when the injuries happened, I think it's irrational to think that's a blemish. But people might look at if they don't win the Olympics as a blemish. See, KD couldn't do it again. I wouldn't, but I don't know. What do you think, Ellis? Is that a blemish if they don't win the Olympics with him on it?
I don't think it's I mean, his legacy is cemented, right? And the Herculean effort
as
a great, I don't know if he's where he's going to land, and it's in the list, and it's all subjective, but he's undeniably one of the greatest offensive players, one of the greatest players ever. And I don't think them losing, if they lose, it's going to be convincing. There's going to be a team that comes out, but I mean, they've got Hall of Famers on this squad. I don't know if they're going to cakewalk. I don't know what the international teams, the other teams look like, but KD will do what needs to be done. He's a killer. I can't see them not getting a gold medal here, so it's hard for me to even speculate.
I'm rooting for them not because of the players on the court, but because of Grant Hill. I want to see in the front offices and the decision-making positions these players morph into great decision makers. And so I'm rooting for them more than I normally would. I'm always rooting for the USA team, but I'll be glued in, and hopefully he put together the right team because, some of those names, even Draymond Green, I'm like, Draymond Green it's like his best day. And Draymond Green's best day, I would have been like, but now I'm especially like, we couldn't find nobody else.
Yeah, but it's like the underdog team, and you got these people knocking on the door for a superstardom, right? You got your Jason Tatum, you got your Devin Bookers, Bradley Beals, all these kind of 1A list guys or 1B, and then Chris Middleton, who gets zero real recognition, but perennial all-star, carrying the Bucks. So I think they're going to come in. I think they all have something to prove. So I think there's going to be some fireworks. Anthony Edwards snubbed for Rookie of the Year. I think it's the chip on your shoulder. We're going to blow through everything.
Yeah. Chris Middleton carries the Bucks sometimes. Let's not get.
now it's like with Giannis out.
I know, but even with Giannis out, it's still sometimes. That's why I be looking at Chris Middleton like, man, sometimes you on back of a milk carton, missing, but. I am rooting for the team, but it ain't got nothing to do with the players on the court. Let's go, Grant Hill. Get into that seat. Show everybody what a young brother can do when given an opportunity. I'm looking forward to seeing this Olympic team. Now, last but certainly not least, on the BallHogSportsTalk, where we ask you kindly every week, and I'll ask you right now to like, comment, and share. Tag your friend, tag a foe, tag anybody that you know. Please share, because this was a great show in the Teachable Moments. That we went through a bunch of teachable moments through sports, business, and entertainment, but this teachable moment comes to you by way of the NCAA. The NCAA shows you this week how not to roll out a new policy. In the 11th hour of the night, they decided, because July 1st, they had to make a decision by July 1st, they decided to allow players of all sports to get paid for their name, image, and likeness. NIL is here, and it arrived with very little direction. It arrived like the Wild Wild West. We're seeing players by way of Instagram, because that's how you communicate these days, at the risk of sounding like an old geezer, by way of Instagram showing they're making money already because of this name, image, and likeness decision. Institutions are showing, also by Twitter and Instagram, that they have departments devoted to helping players build their brand. Where are we now? Where do we go from here? Was this a good rollout? Is this a good idea generally? I'm going to start with you, the Big Flow Show. You have a son that's about to enter Power 5 major football program in the Big Ten. What do you think about this decision? How does it impact him? Are you, and without giving us specifics, are you preparing to take advantage of it? And then we'll dive into some more conversation. I'll start with you. Let's go.
First of all, we have a little time before he enters college, so I get to sit back and look at these ideas and figure out what's good. We've been sitting here talking about, some guys are charging $100 a game to play someone in a video game. Guy from University of Miami's already made $20,000. There's already some money being made, so we're trying to see like what are the avenues. So from a planning standpoint, we can do the wait and see. Unfortunately, the Wild Wild West is going to happen. A lot of people are going to make some money. I think they're going to rein it in. I think they had to make the decision because the local states had already passed the laws. I know Illinois had passed the law, and there was 8 states that passed laws. So they had to do something because you were going to make a real big unfair advantage. It's going to have rippling effects for people for years to come if you didn't give them all free reign for the first time. But I think it'll come back. I do think it's going to be something that they're going to look back. It's going to get out of hand immediately. People are going to make a rush with the lack of rules, and they're going to start paying players and signing guys and doing things really quick. But in the long run, unlike the transfer portal, I think it's good for football because I think at the end of the day, why shouldn't you be able to pay somebody or incentivize somebody to come to your university? At the end of the day, it is a business. At the end of the day, all the customers, all the employees that they have on the staff are incentivized with money. Why can't you incentivize the talent with the money? So I think that it's going to be the haves and the have-nots even to a greater effect. But then you're also going to have schools that, come back on the scene that have money but haven't been able to win. They can go buy their way back to a championship. And you know what? With the dominance we have at the top 3 right now, maybe that's what it's going to take to shake up college football. And maybe somebody is going to have, just like the Yankees invest more money than anybody else to try to win World Series that they somehow never seem to win. They, colleges can do the same thing. And in the free market capitalist society, why shouldn't we be able to do it? You got 4 years of being relevant, as you mentioned with the track star. You got a very short window of being relevant if you don't make it on to the next level. I want to squeeze as much toothpaste out the tube as they can before they go to the next one.
I agree with you, but there's a third party paying that. So it might not be the have-nots because in this case, name, image, and likeness, you're going to get your check or your bag, as they say, Generation Z. You're going to get your bag from a third party. Your bag is coming from the brand. It's not coming from the university. And that's where I think it was kind of clumsy in the rollout. I'll kick it over to you, ETP Ellis, the producer. What do you think about name, image, and likeness as we see it on July 2nd versus how the week began?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm conflicted about it. I think it's positive, right? That some people can, now they are free to monetize their name, image, and likeness, their celebrity, their hard work. It's the worst way of a good opportunity because the term student athlete has been a joke for so long, where it's basically athlete at a college because of you're basically a professional athlete, and the NCAA. You just throw? I think he just threw a jab at us, man. You just threw.
I got my piece of paper.
That was quite.
Man,
oh, you got yours.
I know Notre Dame. You guys are very academic, but the concept of being a student athlete, it's just unfortunate. In reality, the universities and the NCAA shouldn't still be maintaining this virtual monopoly. Instead, and saying, okay, fine, you can go make money elsewhere, but you go from student athlete to primarily an athlete to now athlete business student. Like being a student has been deprioritized because now you're going to have all these kids that are primarily going to be focused on, all right, well, how do I monetize this? How do I get my family right in this moment? But at the same time, they're not even being compensated by the school. So I think, the NCAA rolled it out they did it very childishly. They knew they couldn't win, so they just put their hands up and said, okay, leave you to your devices. Go ahead and open up the floodgates. And you see there's opportunities to be there. I think it's great for a lot of the underrepresented sports that aren't making a lot of money and don't go into professional athletes, whether it's a lot of women's sports, gymnastics, soccer, et cetera, all the other sports that aren't the big cash cows. But I think it's really irresponsible. I'm just concerned that we're going to go through a lot of growing pains early on with a lot of these kids taking advantage of getting money, not necessarily having the right guidance. I mean, even the pro athletes run through bumps and bruises that sometimes they don't recover from in making poor business decisions. And this is starting that process a lot earlier. And, you know, hopefully they get it right. But I just don't like the idea of, you know, even putting another layer before the academics now.
Let me ask you this question, though, Ellis, to that point. You know, there's some stuff they're reading about doing graduation bonuses that they're going to pay people, or eligibility bonuses. So if you stay eligible, to pay you. Really starting to put money behind it. And then you start thinking some of these athletes that go pro, you know, and they don't finish their degrees. Don't you think maybe there'd be a couple more people that don't feel like they have to jump for the money if they're really high-level guys that can finish out their 4 years and get a degree? You know, not that the bonuses are going to do it, but like, maybe this will incentivize and reprioritize the academic portion, because they won't have to rush off and chase the bag. They're going to get at least some of the bag while they're in school.
It's a good point. I guess it's just a matter of making sure that whoever those people are that can monetize have the right people and advisors around them to not go down the slippery slope where you basically just become a brand, right? And you're getting distracted. I mean, I've worked in sports marketing, so I understand the demands, and you have your production days, and you have to do all of these different elements to fulfill your contractual obligations.
Facts. Where
a college education gets in the way of a lot of that, right?
Facts.
And so that's already a problem as an athlete. Like I know you both did very well as students, but you missed a lot of classes because you had to play the sport that you played, and you had to get waivers and all of these things to limit your exposure to the academic instruction. So now you add on that next layer, and hopefully they can navigate around it. But I'm 18 years old. I'm potentially about to be an international celebrity. It's going to be real hard to keep me focused on my academics. Football is probably the only sport in the NCAA that still could navigate that, because every other sport you can go pro early. There's no limitation on it. But college football, it remains a clearinghouse. But even to that point,
Facts.
It'll be hard to keep them in line. I don't know. We'll see.
To your point, the Big Flow show, I just think, though, you're also talking about two different sources of income. If you're calling the ongoing benefits income, that's coming from the university. Again, a third party aspect for name, image, and likeness means that fill in the blank with any brand, any company, any beverage company, shoe company. It's anybody. Your employer, or if you want to look at it as an independent contractor, the person that contracts you can be, or the entity that contracts you can be, literally anybody. And so that's why I think that the NCAA got it wrong, because it's not like they didn't know this was coming. Instead of trying to hide from it and figure out how we can, let's come up with a real way to roll this out to support these student athletes. Because if we want to encourage the students to take advantage of the student part, I agree with Ellis, the producer, on this one. Don't put another hurdle in the way of focusing on graduating. And let's be honest with you as well, ETP, Ellis, the producer, in terms of there are non-revenue generating sports. Those athletes can benefit from this probably the most, especially the ones that have a huge following on social media. They can benefit from it most. But some of the stories that I've heard, especially when it comes to the female athletes, also makes me wonder, are we setting up these young people? An 18-year-old, for example, a Sydney McLaughlin went to Kentucky her freshman year. She is drop dead gorgeous. Are we setting her up to be objectified for a check? And it's just, there's a lot in there that makes me wonder whether or not the NCAA truly cares. And at the source of it, you're supposed to be the regulating body for these young people. And how do you say that you care when there's no real rollout? There's really no plan. It's the wild, wild west. It just makes me wonder, has the NCAA in all of this taken the biggest step back? Because the more that is revealed about what they do or not, it seems as though they don't care at all.
Yeah. Well, look, let me just say this thing. The NCAA just showed us that they are useless and that they can't make a big decision. Look at the COVID decision for football. Look at the fact that this is the one chance in my lifetime the NCAA had a chance to step up and take the lead and be a leader about something. And they said, you know what, we'll let you guys handle it. And then and it became a mess. It worked out in the end because the conferences made it work out in the end. But you had all these conferences doing different things with different rules and stuff starting different. What made you think they sat back and they were hoping that Congress would come back and tell them what they were going to go do? And then they got all up to the last day of not doing anything, and they just said, "F it, just do whatever you want to go do." That's par for the course. But I will say back on the exploitation of the women, are we setting them up for that? I take a little issue with saying that because no one is going to force somebody to take a check to be a model based on their appearance. So are we protecting people from making that decision by saying you can't make the decision?
No, I'm not. But I will say this, that in a world where Instagram and other social media sites have already made it your aesthetics, in a world that young women have all type of body issues, because so the same person on that the same track team that throws the shot put versus Sydney McLaughlin. Sydney McLaughlin was a model, to be honest with you. If she comes out $200,000 richer just because of how she looks, I think you're just making. I personally think that at that age, at 18 years old, you're just setting yourself up for bigger problems. And I think there's got to be a better way to institutionalize how the opportunities come in and to make sure that the alignment with any particular brand or opportunity is consistent with having a student athlete, especially at 18 years old, because the money, if that is the only carrot dangled that an 18-year-old sees, we see it all the time. Like, kids do stupid things for money. Adults do stupid things for money, but kids do them more regularly. And that's all I was saying, is that there could be opportunities, if the money is right, that end up objectifying these people that we should be protecting. That's all I'm saying there.
Yeah, I think it goes across gender, across everybody. I mean, like you said, youth brings ignorance and ambition, and sometimes there's going to be decisions that are made. And the problem is, the NCAA can't unring the bell, right? They're not going to have to now, after it's already out the bag, and now we're going to say, okay, now we're going to institute these regulations and things of that nature. The reality is the NCAA wins off of this anyway, right? So one, they don't have to give up any of their money at all. They make all that money. Two, now they get secondary promotion. So all of these individual athletes are going out and getting promotional deals and marketing, and they're bringing more attention to their school and to the NCAA. And from a sports marketing and licensing standpoint, if I'm the starting quarterback of Alabama and I go out and get a deal with, Beats by Dre, and they want me in my Alabama uniform, now they got to go to the University of Alabama, and now they got to pay licensing fees to Alabama as well. So in reality, you're incentivizing these kids to go out and get this money that you're then probably going to get a lot of opportunities come back to you.
And I'll say this, be careful what you ask for. And this is why I wish the NCAA would have stepped in, because the universities, when it does come to the point where you got to make a decision of whether or not players are going to get paid or not, across sports, the universities can say, well, they have an opportunity to make money through their name, image, and likeness, right? So you can now use that as a reason why not to pay the athletes by way of the institutions that are making billions of dollars off the back of this free labor. So I'll leave it there, man.
Hey, Bama's gonna start hitting you. If you want to wear your uniform, Bama gonna hit you for a piece of yours too. Hey, you want to wear your uniform? I need 40% off the top. Let's go.
That's it.
Straight up.
That's it. They'll increase. I mean, it's licensing fees, right? So I guess one thing that I'd be interested in. I mean, you as former D1 both as former D1 athletes. So Reggie Bush, Chris Webber, they've all come out to looking for being reinstated, their records, their awards. What do you think about the retroactive kind of reconciliation of the past, or do you think we should just move forward?
Go. I'll let you go first, Big Flo.
Well, it's kind of like in Chicago, they're starting to let all the people back, all these weed cases right now. The weed is legal. If you're in jail with a nonviolent crime for weed, they're just letting you out, right? Because retroactive. I believe you got to free these dudes too. If we're saying it's okay now, it's kind of hard. They were breaking a rule, and I guess whatever the rule was is what the rule was. But I think you kind of got to go back to those things a little bit. I mean, I say that now. I didn't think long enough, because you were cheating. There was an advantage before. Now there's not an advantage. So I'm gonna remain neutral. I got wishy-washy on them. I'm gonna remain neutral. I got to put more thought into whether or not you reinstate them, because it was cheating at the time they did it.
It's tough for me to say this because I can't stand USC. So, Reggie Bush, I don't feel sorry for
Michigan.
him. I can't stand Michigan. Chris Webber, I don't feel sorry for him. But the truth of the matter is that, I think that their records should be reinstated. Yeah, I think the university should embrace them, because what they were doing is they were taking they were taking an alternative route to get to where we are now because of rules that were, I think, nonsensical. And just like the cannabis weed cases where it's been retroactive and making sure that we drop those, I think that you should at least drop the stain or drop the policies of disregarding the records. I think that Reggie Bush should get his Heisman back. But again, same analogy like the weed cases, the damage is already done. If you've already been incarcerated for 10 years, you've already given up those years of your life. The damage is already done to their reputation. So I would reinstate their records and try to make whole what, unfortunately, I think was bad policy. We'll end it there. But you let me know in terms of name, image, and likeness. Next time we can talk about it. And Ellis, you know what we got to end with. I'll let you tee it up. I'll let you tee it up.
You know, what would we be without our weekly LaMelo watch? Even though he's not in the playoffs, even though he got snubbed for the Olympic team by Anthony Edwards. He's he's in the NBA playoff commercials with his brother Lonzo Ball. They're in the
good commercial.
Lonzo got to pay.
Black
Lonzo
Widow.
got to give him some of that check though. He ain't been in nothing yet.
Yeah,
great commercial though.
So yeah, I mean, he's also doing things off the court, right? So he's an early investor in a sports app that's trying to engage the youth back to live sports. He's an investor with a lot of notable names. Michael Jordan, his boss, the owner of the team he plays for, Wayne Gretzky, Patrick Mahomes, D-Hop from the Arizona Cardinals, Devin Booker, J. Cole, Sabrina Ionescu. So, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to keep the LaMelo love going.
The teachable moment here is, I told y'all so. I told you that this man was not only legendary, soon-to-be Hall of Famer on the court, but he's a pioneer. Name, image, and likeness in itself is probably just a reflection of LaMelo. He was before his time. LaMelo showing y'all what to do on and off the court. So the teachable moment in this week's Teachable Moments episode is, I told you so. Just listen to me, baby. I know a star when I see one, man. LaMelo Ball. That's the way to end the show right there, baby. This has been a great week of the Ball Hog Sports Show. Go ahead. I
got one last teachable moment that I would be remiss as a parent of an athlete not to pass on to all you parents out there. If your son is asleep or your daughter's asleep right now, specifically your son, or if he's doing anything right now, I want you to stop and I want you to teach that boy how to kick a soccer ball. Because we didn't talk about this, but some man just got $675 million for 4 years. And if your son is not kicking a soccer ball at this moment, you're failing him as a parent. That's the last thing I'm talking about.
To your point, though, the kicker from UCF, when we look at his name, image, and likeness, you remember that story about 4 years ago? He had to decide between keeping his scholarship or being a social media star. He's a YouTube sensation. I follow him as Destroying is the name. But Donald De La High, I think is how you say his name, UCF. He chose to be a social media star. And good for him, man. He's still making big bank from those videos. But this name, image, and likeness thing is I think at the whole different level. So it's good to see the evolution. Be a kicker or be a soccer player, because there's money in that stuff, man. It's some money in that stuff. All right, y'all.
Messi,
Any parting
paid athlete ever?
Highest ever. Any parting words before we get out of here? ETP, Ellis, the producer.
Welcome, Ellis.
No, thank you. Good to be all up in the video. And, I think this was a good show. Teachable moments. We started off. I just want to commend you, B. Brown, just for the maturity and the patience and the reflection on opening up the dialogue, right? We're going to talk about provocative things on this show all the time. People, none of it's with offense, but it's all with challenging thoughts and unpopular or popular opinions. And I'm happy to be a part of it. And happy 4th of July, whatever that means to you.
Right. The Big Flow Show. Any parting shots?
God bless America. Happy 4th of July to everybody. Love both y'all, man. It's been a great show.
Been a great show. I'll go out with this parting shot, and Ellis alluded to it. We're not here to offend anybody.
It's raining, guys. Take me off. Sorry.
Go ahead, man. You good. But we are.
Enjoy your vacation.
Enjoy your vacation. That's what you get rained on for talking about my Browns. But we are here to challenge everybody. Not here to offend anybody, but here to challenge everybody. I started off the show in a very vulnerable moment. This Teachable Moments was a very teachable moment week for me in learning not only terminology, but how to, when you've hurt a friend, how to address that friend. But I hope that there's also been teachable moments for people who looked at my mistake and did anything and everything but contact me. For those who have contacted me directly and indirectly, I thank you. We are not going to walk around on eggshells on this show. The Ball Hog Sports Talk is about being provocative. We're not going to avoid the LGBTQ conversation on the Ball Hog Sports Talk. We will be more thoughtful about having the conversation and do so going forward, being more of an ally. But we're not going to avoid the topic. While most people look forward to getting these type of things behind them, again, I'll say it, I'm looking forward to having it in front of me and addressing it in a way that's far more responsible and being more of an ally. This Teachable Moment segment was brought to you by a mistake, but at the same time, every mistake provides an opportunity. I thank you for listening. I ask you to like, comment, share. This is much longer than we normally go, but it's because we had to deal with this topic, the Teachable Moment, that started last week and has continued to this week. We're going to air last week's show. We got to do some editing to make sure that that particular segment is deleted. We're going to air last week's show because I do also want the mental health crisis that has occurred in all communities, but with a lot of the former professional athletes struggling with their transition that has now graduated to a drug addiction for my friend. I want that part of the show to be captured by others and to be shared so we can, as a family, of human beings, whatever you identify as a family, as human beings, to make sure we help with mental health. We talked about from a professional sports standpoint, but also those who identify in the LGBTQ community that have dealt with their own mental health issues related to mistreatment and the historical perspective that we addressed a bit today. With that, this long show has come to an end. Thank you for joining us as the Ball Hog Sports Talk. Long show. I can't even enunciate anymore. It's the Ball Hog Sports Talk with your boy B Brown ESQ, aka the Ball Hog, aka the Mouth of the South, aka Mr. Excessive Celebration. This is where sports, business, and entertainment collide. We're gonna do it rough, rugged, and raw, as we always have. Nothing's gonna change going this point forward. So tune in next Friday. We is out. Peace.